Hey guys, still here and welcome back to Wargame. Today, 10v10, Chosen Reservoir. Now, this is going to be a dirty replay, so brace yourself. What we had in this replay was a team of a couple of guys. I was in here with Janord, Lorden, and Minstrel Duck, and we were all communicating on Discord. Now, we did see in the lobby that the first, I think, 5 players on Blue 4, probably a team as well, they were doing some sort of meme decks because they were all Swedish. Some were Swedish armored, some were Swedish mechanized, if I recall correctly. They were all using weird decks. And I was using, not Scandinavia, I was using USSR Airborne. And I thought, you know what, let's just go with a couple of planes and see where it gets us. What's about to follow is a display of what happens when the enemy team does not bring airborne. If they bring no planes, if they bring too little AA, and if they just completely lose the air war, then what you're about to see is what happens. Or rather, what can happen. Because of course it won't always work. Sometimes you'll make mistakes, sometimes the enemy does bring a lot more AA than you might want to, than you really know about. So it's going to be an interesting situation, always, with airborne. And that's why I love playing it. I just like the diversity, I like the flexibility that you have. And it's trying to find those holes in the enemy's lines. Where can I get in without losing my fighters, without losing my planes? Now I'm using an Su-27 PU at Elite, an Su-24 Seed Aircraft, and I'm intentionally sending that in early, because usually most anti-air weapons, they are not very stabilized, if they are stabilized at all. So that means that the Su-24 can target units which are not likely to shoot back, and if they do shoot back, it's going to slow them down. The other planes that you see up here are from Lorden, it's the MiG-29Ms. These are 2 cluster bombers. They can deal a severe blow, and especially to a lot of enemy vehicles very quickly. Now, over in the middle, we have a bit of skirmish going on with Redoubt, Puma, and an HKP. These are a couple of the... or at least one of the Swedish players, I think. Over here, a lot of stuff is being stunned. This is not great. This is not what you want to see. Blue really had the right idea with the amount of firepower that they threw down on Ivan. And they got a lot of hits. Fortunately, not too much damage. They did get a bit, I think 55 points, that's probably that guy. But overall, it wasn't too terrible. Now, I was able to snipe one of the anti-air guns that Todd 90 over here was sending in with the Seed Aircraft, and then I evac my Su-27 because it wasn't really doing much at the time. This is when we also spot a large column of forces which are heading towards this town. This town, which is already trying to get captured by Hassan, or Hassansin. This is a lot of vehicles. And unfortunately, I believe... yeah, Lorden does have an Su-27 up. Sorry, an Su-24. The Su-27M is mine. I'm hitting whatever I can. There's just so much stuff here, and I'm getting free kills and transports, which arguably are not the priority, but, well, they're here, so I might as well go for them. We have a 912 flying over. That's the thermobaric bombs. First put people on fire, or blast people with HE, and then put them on fire. And, not sure if you can still see it evac, but Lorden's Su-24 just leveled the whole place over here. And that got him quite a few points, 325 at total, that is, already. Lots and lots of STRF and STRB coming in. STRV 121s, PBV 302s, so that's the transports, LVKV 90. My Su-24 is doing overtime in order to try and get all the anti-air units killed. There is no shortage of targets. I can keep flying that thing out, and almost every time I will get a kill. Over on the right, they also have quite a few tanks. Again, an STRV-121. That's their super heavy in brackets, because it's a little lacking on the armor. It does have a great gun, with a good rate of fire, good accuracy, good stabilizer. But I still have my planes, and so does Lorden. So without a lot of anti-air, those things take a lot of damage because they simply cannot be defeated or cannot be defended. That's one STRV-121 that just went up. The STR F-9040 took a severe blow, but they're alive. These things can take a beating, and they were not really the main subject of the bombardment there by Lorden, so these things were actually able to survive. At this point, Blue has scored 1155 versus Red's 1640. And while we have taken quite a bit of terrain with the team, it's questionable how long we can keep up if Blue keeps sending in large columns of forces like they do here. Sure enough, the airstrikes will be able to do quite a bit, but at some point, ground forces will be important, especially, for example, over here in Dimitri, where Minstrel Duck does have an Mi-8 KT, which is capable of potentially shooting down the helicopter that's coming in. But if we lose this sector, then we lose our air spawn. So it is doubly vital for us. Now, Su-27M, I can see that the LVKV-90 is busy shooting at the 912 from Lieutenant Eco. And I use that opportunity to send in my Su-27M to go directly at the anti-air gun and take it out. So that's another 50 points, and, more importantly, another anti-air that's been taken out. Back in the middle, there is still a big skirmish going on between the Panzerskite, Commandosi, LSTR, and slightly farther back, the Zanshi. So these guys still have quite a foothold here, the Zanshi. It's going to be pretty difficult for Blue for infantry to get close without getting at least shot at. And, well, all of a sudden, the player quits. And he, thereby, since I am the top player on the team, at least I am listed first, I get all the units. From him, that is. So I get an HQ-7, I get a whole bunch of Zanshi and a bunch of transports. And I decide to not really move up. I know that the LSTR are dying, I know that the Commandosi are dying. The Zanshi I only just realized I have. So there's not too much that I can do. I can try to push in, but I'm also trying to push into two AA guns. The LVKV-90, there were two, but then my Su-24 flew over, and two VK-40s. So even if I wanted to push in, I would still be pushing into an enemy anti-air gun, and potentially reinforcements over here from Moonman 82. Yeah, they just spewed out a whole lot more Panzerskite, which is something that my Zanshi just don't really do too well. Another 912 comes in. If this thing goes for the infantry here, they can get a lot of kills. Scores so far 1600, 2020. So we're still relatively close. Kutai 90, for some reason detected and not moving, pose a prime target to a MiG-912, which flies in and dumps the ordnance right on top of the position, or at least close to the position where they were. Not sure if they got the kill. Yeah, napalm kills are always shared for some reason. I think the game still doesn't quite know how to translate those. I'm pulling back my Zanshi in the meanwhile, while I'm also sending in additional aircraft. The Su-27M is back, because I'm trying to take out the Nanayon Shiki G over here. Main reason, my Zanshi over here don't really need support. And with the Su-27M taking out the Nanayon Shiki G, the infantry over here is going to have an easier time, because they won't get shot at greater range with both main guns and autocannons. Interestingly, at this point, Janord was doing a lot of spotting for us with the Mi-2. It didn't quite last, but we also had Janord's Spasnaz Gru over there, which was also able to do quite a bit of spotting. I didn't quite have my Su-27 handy, so the Lansen over here with the napalm does escape, but it does drop. And the Spetsnaz Gru are on the receiving end of that. Back to the middle, it's a bit quiet. Temporarily. I have a lot of Zanshi, and I don't intend to move. I'll only move them up if I have to, and I'll probably give up terrain before I do that. Because the Zanshi I find are, well, they're okay for infantry. Anti-tank, they're pretty mediocre. Infantry on infantry, they're alright, but they tend to panic relatively quick. But it's not just the Zanshi which are here. Sure enough, you might see the Zanshi, you might see the HQ-7, you might see the ZSLs. But what you're not seeing is my air power. There's another Su-24 flying over. It's been rearmed, and for some reason, these guys don't turn off their AA. So I know that there's two more VK-40s over there waiting to get killed. Lorden, in this time, helping out. Su-24M comes in, drops 30 250 kilogram bombs. Unfortunately, I fly the Su-24 just not close enough. Lorden does a bombing run. I think my Zanshi fired the last shot, and I got the kill where he really should have gotten it. He deserved it. I just finished them off. And I guess that the VK-40s have now been turned off. Which, for me, is a problem, because I can't hit them. But he can, with the MiG-29M. So they're going to have to make a choice. Do I turn them on, or do I turn them off? And he keeps them off until he spots the the MiG-29, which then drops a big cluster payload close to the Challenger, but not quite on top of the Challenger. So I get it with my Su-27M. Stormer returns fire. Unfortunately, doesn't really do much, or at least, well, fortunately, maybe I should say. Su-24 flies over, more as a last thought evac, and to once again see if those things are still there. And at this point, we are actually gaining quite a lot of points. 2425 versus 1875, so we're now 600 points ahead, or near enough. STRV-103D falling back. Wise thing, you don't really want to be attacking with just one tank, especially if you cannot see the enemy. And I decided that with all those bombing runs that were done on this town, maybe I can just push in. So I'm bringing my Zanshi forward, and I immediately regret it. Because they are getting shot at from every which way. There's Panzerskite all over the place. And even Territorials. British reservists. Not particularly dangerous, but they can pose quite a risk to the already panicked Zanshi, as they're taking a lot of fire from a lot of the Panzerskite over here. But once again, we have airstrikes. SK-60B came in. Did not get its missile off. Su-27 PU intercepts. Su-24 once again flies over. The MiG-912 flies over to the far right, looking for more infantry, which it can then first hit and then potentially burn. And in the middle, there is another beautiful target in the form of all those Panzerskite. So once again, Lorden flies in with the Su-24 and bombs the shit out of all of these guys. They don't stand a chance. This is what happens if the enemy does not bring fighters nor any other form of anti-air. Well, okay, that's not entirely fair. They had the LVKV-90. They also had a Stormer. But it's just not enough. They don't spend enough on the anti-air. They do, however, continue to push here. TOT-90, trying to push with an STRV-121, and an EPBV-90 for spotting. But the Su-27M is already rearmed and ready to go. And if I can put that thing to bed, the STRV-121, then that helps. So I get it killed, evac the Su-27M, which takes a couple of holes in the wings from the LVKV-90, but overall the jets should be repaired relatively quick. The damage not severe. More Zanshi moving to the front line, currently engaging with the Territorials. Unfortunately, Redoubt with the Lega Pecota was able to push out the Panzerskite, insofar as there were any left, after the massacre that Lorden put them through. And as you can see, the team is doing quite well on points. We have Lorden on 677, Redoubt on 702, Deshter on 407, and myself on 689. I haven't really lost many units. I think the only ones that I'm losing out on are the transports, so the ZSL-56, and potentially a Zanshi here and there, although surprisingly, all of these squads are still alive, even if it is with one guy, but they're still alive. The Zanshi keep pushing up, trying to dislodge the Commando Marine and the Panzerskite. Fortunately, these guys with the Tarasnice are able to do some damage, or, well, trying to do some damage, against the STRV-103D with its blistering rate of fire. Their accuracy, however, leaves something to be desired. Their accuracy is 40%. They are both shaken and worried, so their accuracy is very subpar, and they don't do much. But that's when Artie actually comes to the rescue, and forces this tank to either maneuver or die. The tank chooses to maneuver, still takes a lot of damage, but at least the Lega and the Zanshi for now are, well, a bit safer, I suppose. 29M comes in, once again Lorden drops the bombs, but misses the STRV-103D. Very unfortunate. This would have been a very nice kill to make sure that the infantry would have a bit of an easier time. Not an easy time against the Panzerskite and the Commando Marine, but a bit of an easier time. Su-27M repaired, rearmed, and re-engaging the enemy Takes out the surviving STRV 103. And now we have the Panzerskeet on the run. At which case, they are not inside of a building. Now they are, so I immediately try to give chase. Trying to get these guys killed off. Because these are still regular trained troops. But compared to the Zanshi, they're slightly better. Now the Commander Marines are now pushing up as well. They're potentially trying to take over from the gap that's been left by the Panzerskeet. They're keeping the Zanshi busy. I'll give you that much. They're keeping them busy. That's... well, it's hard to kill these guys off quickly enough. There's more Panzerskeet over here. Unfortunately, I don't really have too much more to manage. The MiG-29 912A that's been doing such good work is now really being subjected to anti-air from this LVKV-90. And I'm not sure if my seed is already on the way. No, it is not, but the SU-25 is, and there's the seed aircraft. I had already bought the SU-25T, Elite at that. And since I know that this thing is slightly slower than the SU-24, I decided to send it out, and the SU-24, whenever it was ready, sent out right after. And they arrive almost at the same time. This makes for a very potent combination. If the enemy engages their radar, the SU-24 will pick them up. If they do not engage their radar, the SU-25 will fly over and kill them off with a Vickr. So it's going to be fucked if you do, fucked if you don't. There is no way to escape for these guys. And if the enemy does try to do something which might need jet interception, the SU-27M over here is on patrol and standing by to intercept any fighters. In the meanwhile, the 25T is circling overhead. It did just dodge a missile, potentially from an infrared, I think a light anti-air. There you go. Short arrow. And immediately the 25T gets one kill here and a second kill there. With the other kills combined, it already redeemed its price tag of 200 points and immediately gets evac'd. In case you're wondering about the points, the amount of points that I'm getting are quite high for a tactical. You start out with a very low amount of points, usually on these maps. But some of these are called fast tacticals, which is a fairly euphemistic term, because they are sure enough faster than, but by no means are they super fast games. But you do get a lot more points, which is why I'm able to afford stuff like an SU-27M for 200 points, an SU-25T for 200 points, an SU-24 for 80 points, and an SU-27 PU for another 180 points, I think. So that's how I'm getting all of the points to afford the units that I'm bringing. Now, unfortunately, a bit of miscommunication here. Lorden drops the bombs, and by some miracle does not hit the Leker Pekota over here. Norlandsjäger get killed off, Zanshi firing the last shots. It's, once again, it's these elite levels of Zanshi, which have almost no health left, and yet they're still kicking. The other squad has been killed off, but I still have another 30 back here. At this point, there's not that much left of Blue 4. Sure enough, the players are mostly still there, but they don't have a lot of units left. Not for lack of trying, because there's another Nanayon Shiki G. SU-25T is circling over the middle, looking for a relatively safe area. I'm not sure how safe it is. There was a Stormer here at some point, might still be there. The LVKV died, I know that for sure. So I might be able to go for this Nanayon Shiki G, and even if this thing does take some fire, it will be able to sustain some fire, because they are very, very robust jets. Like the A-10, they have a fair amount of armor. The SU-25T, I believe, even more so than the A-10, at 2 points front, 1 side, 2 points back, and 1 point top. So it doesn't matter where they get attacked from, it's not going to be as bad as if a jet was completely unarmored. Those are the Lansen coming in. Unfortunately for the Lansen, the SU-27 PU is on patrol and is eager for blood. Engages at long range with the Vimpel R-77s. 1 hit, 2 hits, jet killed. Immediately I evac it, and I did take some return fire somewhere from these forests, but it wasn't big. And I don't even think that it hit the aircraft. So I'm not very concerned about whatever the hell that was. My points at this point have blossomed to 1341. And the SU-25T is still murdering stuff on the far right flank. I think it could have done more. It still has 11 Vickers left. But I'm a bit short on recon. Now, Lorden, a bit annoyed, apparently, with my Su-25, well, mediocre attempts to try and kill some Humvees, drops a payload from an Su-24M on it, and unfortunately for him, the Humvees still managed to disappear. They still managed to make it out alive. Panicked, for sure. The infantry, probably not just panicked, but also half dead. And the Humvees, well, they're gonna live to fight another day. There is another aircraft coming in, another Su-24M, so I don't think they're gonna live for very long to fight that other day. Now at this point, we have a bit of a call for help here from Ionut. There's a Challenger marksman in these hills, and he just took out the Spetsnaz GRU. So I sent in the Su-24. Initially I thought I couldn't find it, but then it turns out that the radar is still active. Again, I'm sending in a combination that's almost undodgeable. If the Challenger marksman is active, the Su-24 will kill it. If it is not active, but detected, the Su-27M will kill it. So it has nowhere to go, and it turns out that the Su-24 is more than enough to kill it. From a frontal shot, it might not have killed it. Side shot, definitely. Because these things are Challenger chassis, but my Su-24 missiles do have a lot of punch. So they don't really care that much about how much armor there is on those vehicles. At this point, more and more of Blue Force starts to collapse. They don't quit out right away, especially these 5 guys, which I really like. They had a bit of a weird setup going on. And with it, well, there was a lot of potential for failure. Because Swedish decks, while they do have a lot of punch, they don't generally have the best armor. The MiG-29s from Lorden, they do push in. Getting a couple of cluster hits. I think they were trying to hit vehicles in here. But I'm not exactly sure what they were managing to kill. Lorden knows better than to try and engage the Panzerskeeter with cluster. He was definitely not going for that. So he might have been spotting something else. I just don't know exactly what he was looking at. At this point, we're waiting for Ionut with another Spetsnaz GRU team to start lighting up more targets which are coming in from Boris. And for some reason or another, the enemy still has not spawned in any fighters. So I'm still getting away with this. Su-27M on patrol, in case the enemy decides to spawn in, well, any kind of vehicle at this point. I don't even care what they're spawning, I will kill it. There's what I'm looking for. And now, after all this time, Cairo spawns in a Gripen. Now a Gripen has 40% ECM. It has missiles which are almost as good, if not as good as the Vimpels. I carry 6, he carries 4. They're both fire and forget. 60% stabilizer, 5 HE. I do 5 HE and 60% stabilizer. So these things are very, very much even. The thing where I start to win is with the shorter range missiles. Because I can fire at 4,200 meters and he can fire at 3,850. He only carries 2 short range missiles. I carry 4. Also, I have 2 fighters and he has 1. Because I also have the Su-27M, but I decided it was far too valuable to be put through a dogfight. So I evac that. Su-27 turns around, chases the Gripen, which is also evac ordered. Hit one, hit twice, and get out of my airspace. That's pretty much, I think, what I was saying at that point. Get out of my airspace. It was amusing to see an enemy fighter up, but it sure as hell didn't last long. Now at this point of the battle, we are ahead by 2,300 points, and another aircraft presents itself as a target. A Mirage 5F. I'm not sure exactly why this guy was bringing in a bomber. The MiG-29M from Lorden is trying to intercept with the Vimpels, but does not quite get the range in. And once again, the Su-25 is on station and going for virtually anything that it can find. I'm just waiting for targets. And those targets will at some point get spotted. I just have to be a little patient. Mirage 5F comes equipped with a couple of short-range air-to-air. I am not really going to chase that down with an Su-24. It could dogfight if you absolutely wanted to. And yeah, what I find a little sad is that I cannot save these supply vehicles from this guy. Yeah, that was Ionut, by the way. Because my fighter was still rearming. So instead I get a MiG-23 ML. Not the best fighter, but for 65 points, it was all I could afford at the time. Because I had already spent quite a lot of points on planes, as you can imagine. 3,500 meter range against airplanes, carries 6 fire and forgets with a 40% accuracy. These things have 0 ECM. Any missile fired at it has a better than average chance to hit because they cannot disrupt them. So I'm keeping that circling, seeing if more French aircraft suddenly want to come out and play. But now the French don't seem to be so eager. There are some attack markers here from me. That's Artie that I've spotted. I was a bit confused there for a second. I thought, what the hell? Why am I pinging the map? Well, I'm spotting Artie. And I don't really have anything that can kill that. But Lorden does. The SU-24, 2 of them in fact are coming in. And in case that doesn't quite do the job, the MiG-29Ms with their cluster bombs are hot on their heels. There is, however, some AA in this sector, and Janord marks it. The bombs come in. That's dirty. He kills the FOB. Instead of the artillery, he kills the FOB, which you could argue is another way of killing the artillery. Simple, or, well, not so much killing it, but shutting it down. Reducing their effectiveness because they cannot as easily get rearmed. I'm still flying sorties over the right side, this time down once again with the SU-25. Managing to get 1 hit, I think. And then I take a big hit. 9 hit points are lost on the SU-25, and I have to evac it. These things can take a big beating, but not that much. So I don't want to see another one of those missiles. And it turns out the culprit was an RBS Hawk, which the SU-25 finds with no trouble at all because it was still active. So immediately gets shot at and killed off by the SU-24. Again, all of this could have been prevented if the enemy had just brought more airborne players, because they had none. Now, not having any airborne players does not mean that nobody will operate air, but it does tell you something about their intent. Or at least you could reasonably deduce that they're probably not going to use any air power. Of course, you can still fool the enemy. You can use an armor deck and still have, I think, an elite fighter. So you can definitely throw people's attention off that way. But I found that more often than not, when a person has an armor deck, they will actually use tanks. At this point, Lorden, with all of his bombing, is sitting on 1193. I'm sitting on 1791. And Lorden and myself are just using planes. The only ground forces that I have are the ones that I inherited. The Zanchi, here, there. All of my Zanchi transports died. I have nothing. Oh yeah, I have one standard CV, the one that I got. But that's it. Nothing else. Blue 4 is definitely collapsing at this point, so I'm going to skip to the end. Because there's not that much more interesting that happens. I tried to do a gun run there with a with a MiG, trying to get a supply vehicle killed off because I couldn't capture it. Again, I have very few ground forces, let alone the means to get them there. And I didn't really want to be buying additional units. Unfortunately, I think, lose 1 unit. Yes. I lose a MiG-23 ML, courtesy of these 2 Mirage 2000Cs. Finally, the French show up with something that resembles a fighter. Back in 1988. These things have 7,000 meter range. They fire 2 missiles with a pretty good accuracy. 2 short-range missiles for dogfighting. But both of these long-range missiles are semi-active. Whereas I can just dump 4 missiles into the air and evac. So I have an advantage when these guys want to fight. At this point, Blue 4 is still moving some of their vehicles across. They're setting up something that resembles a defense in Cheriton, and it is not that easy a sector to defend. Especially not with a bunch of artillery units being deployed against it. There is, once again, that combination of the 2 Mirages. Yeah, but again, nothing much happens after that initial part of the game. Or after, this late into the game. Minstrel Duck pushes in with a bunch of tanks. Mid Shield surrenders. I'll lose both the SU-27 and the PU. Unfortunately, that's courtesy of those planes flying too close together and those 2 Mirages flying in and killing both my planes. I was just getting too greedy. And at this point the enemy's CV is on the move or has been killed, but I think it's running away. And with that, the enemy could no longer call in any additional aircraft. So, almost no ground forces used, 2,313 points killed off versus 625 lost. Now, if you use an air deck, losses go fast, because planes are expensive. So, oh, by the way, I'll try not to take all the credit. Lorden, kill-death ratio-wise, played a lot better than I did. 1,543 points in kills, 145 in losses. Janord didn't get as many kills and losses, or as many kills as he did losses, but he performed a very important role, which was spotting targets for both myself and for Lorden. If he hadn't spotted all of those units, including those aircraft early on, we would not have nearly been as effective as we were. Minstrel Duck coming in with the tanks at the late stage and just completely overruling the enemy base also played well. And the rest of the guys, I don't really know. I didn't really pay too much attention to them. This guy left. I inherited his units. Lieutenant Eco was the guy with the MiG-29 912s. And the others, I don't really know. I think Redoubt was on the far right. Grinnis, I don't know, but he didn't play that well. Anyway, kills. SU-24. 1, 2, 3, 4 LVKV-90s. And 2 Hawks. And a Marksman. That's a lot of NTR killed for 1 Siege unit. Siege units can be quite difficult, quite dangerous, but 1 fighter, and I will think twice before I send a Siege aircraft out. Then the SU-27M. This is an impressive list. We got a Challenger 1 Mark III, a 121, even an AA unit, Nanion Shiki, another 121, and finally a Caesar. Lots of high-value targets. Zanshi, the inherited ones, a couple of transports, some territorials, Commander Marine, Norlandsjäger, Green Jackets. Especially this guy and his squad, or what was left of his squad, did well. SU-27 PU, shooting down a SK-60B bomber, if you want to call it that. A Lansen, a Gripen, a Mirage 5F, and a Mirage 2000. So I did get a Vengeance at least, after losing this aircraft. That was Vidal. Let's see, is that who I lost it to? No, I lost it to the other guy, Lafon. Vidal did also kill off my MiG-23ML. Crap. Oh, the SU-27M got killed off by the Mistral. VBL Mistral. Anyway, the 25T, decent success rate, but I think also mostly... Sorry, my throat just completely froze up there. The SU-25T also mostly a morale defeating weapon. Because if you see one of these things flying around, you know that your team has really messed up with NTR. And any unit that gets spotted, that is a vehicle, is going to be dead very quickly. Because those SU-25Ts are just so incredibly deadly. And finally, a couple more kills by the Zanshi. Losses? Well, mostly Zanshi and transports. These were units that I inherited. Had I not gotten these units, I wouldn't have lost them either, and I probably would have ended the game with the loss of the MiG-23, the SU-27, and the SU-27 PU. So it's not that bad. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let it be a cautionary tale. What happens if you have 1 or 2 airborne players? In this case, it was Lorden and myself. 2 airborne players versus none. We completely wiped the floor with these guys. Because we could just fly uninterrupted, sortie after sortie after sortie. There was some AA, sure, but it was either constantly left on, and thus very easily defeated, or it was just not long enough a range and could be quickly taken out. Don't get caught in this situation. Bring your planes. If you see that nobody else is bringing planes, you can always bring planes. They might then not be elite. They might not be the best, but try to at least have something up that can shield your team from this level of, well, airplane atrocity. Anyway, I hope you had fun with the Russian air deck. I will post the deck down below in the description so you can find it there if you want to use it. And aside from that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will catch you guys soon for the next one.